Picture this: Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble sneak away from their wives. They light up cigarettes, then they look at the camera and tell you and your kids,
"Time's a pack. Winston's got that filter blend. Yeah, Fred."
that Winston tastes good. This actually happened on a cartoon in prime time. Millions of families watched it. The Flintstones was never a kids' show. It was an adult sitcom, and somehow TV networks turned it into Saturday morning cartoons. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how they did it. You'll understand why the show you remember isn't the show that originally aired. You probably watched the Flintstones on Saturday mornings or after school, maybe on cable reruns. You thought it was just a cartoon for kids. Dinosaurs, silly voices, harmless fun, something to keep you entertained while you ate cereal. But that's not how it started. Not even close. When the Flintstones premiered in 1960, it aired at 8:30 p.m. Friday night, prime time, right after the evening news. It had a laugh track, it had cigarette sponsors, and it was made for adults, specifically for adults. This wasn't Scooby-Doo, this wasn't Yogi Bear, this was the Honeymooners in caveman costumes. Here's what most people miss: the Flintstones you watched as a kid. That's not the same show adults watched in 1960. The content was edited, the sponsors changed, the whole thing was rewritten, scene by scene, episode by episode. I'm going to show you 3 big changes: the original adult version, the pivot that changed everything, and the Saturday morning makeover that erased the show's history. Stick with me, this gets wild. And by the end, you'll never look at Fred Flintstone the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. In 1960, cartoons were for kids, Saturday mornings only. Theatrical shorts before movies, that was it. Animation wasn't taken seriously, it wasn't considered art, it was just cheap entertainment for children. Then Hanna-Barbera had a crazy idea. What if we made a cartoon for adults? Prime time, like the Honeymooners, but with cavemen and dinosaurs. ABC said yes, they took a gamble, a big one. September 30th, 1960. The Flintstones became the first animated sitcom on American television. Think about this for a second. The show aired at 8:30 p.m. on Friday nights. Same time as Gilligan's Island, same time as The Andy Griffith Show, same time as other adult sitcoms. This was not for children. This was not Saturday morning programming. And you could tell from the very first episode. Fred Flintstone wasn't a goofy dad, he wasn't a cartoon character teaching life lessons. He was stressed about money, frustrated with his boss, always scheming to get ahead. The show dealt with debt, real debt, workplace problems, gambling, marital fights that didn't get resolved in 22 minutes. Real fights, not the kind that end with a hug and a moral lesson. There were jokes about drinking. Fred and Barney hung out at the Water Buffalo Lodge, basically a bar, a fraternal club where men went to escape their wives. Wilma and Betty went to nightclubs, they gossiped, they manipulated their husbands, characters lied to each other, they schemed, they got into real arguments. One episode was about Fred and Wilma trying to have a baby, infertility, adoption anxiety, the emotional weight of wanting a family and not being able to have one. That's not a kid's cartoon, that's adult drama. That's real life wrapped in animation. Like, the writers weren't hiding this stuff, they were leaning into it because the audience was adults, not children. But wait, it gets crazier, much crazier. From 1960 to 1963, the Flintstones was sponsored by Winston Cigarettes, one of the biggest tobacco companies in America. Not just commercials during the breaks. Fred and Barney sold cigarettes themselves in integrated ads as part of the show. In one ad, they're supposed to build a backyard barbecue for their wives. They sneak away, light up Winstons, and Fred says, "This is the best tasting cigarette I ever smoked." Barney agrees. They praise the filter. They praise the flavor. They talk about how smooth it is. Then the tagline, "Winston tastes good like a cigarette should." Kids were watching this, parents were watching this, and nobody thought it was weird. Nobody complained. Nobody raised an eyebrow. Because in 1960, cigarette ads were everywhere. TV, radio, magazines, billboards. Smoking was normal. It was socially acceptable, even encouraged. Doctors appeared in cigarette ads. Athletes appeared in cigarette ads. Sponsoring a primetime show, even an animated one, was just business as usual. Here's the problem. Kids loved the show, the bright colors, the dinosaurs, the slapstick humor, the silly sound effects. So families started watching together, parents and children, side by side. And that created a big problem, a problem nobody saw coming. By 1963, something had to change. The show was pulling in young viewers, lots of them, but the sponsors were selling cigarettes to families, to kids. Then Pebbles was born and everything fell apart. February 1963, Pebbles Flintstone was born, a cute cartoon baby designed to appeal to families, designed to sell toys and baby products. Almost immediately, there was a problem, a big one. You had a cartoon baby on a show sponsored by cigarettes. Think about that, a baby and cigarette ads in the same show. Parents started complaining, advocacy groups started complaining. The optics were terrible, the PR was a nightmare, and Winston quietly walked away. They ended their sponsorship later that year. Let me say that again, the Flintstones lost its cigarette sponsor because they added a baby. This wasn't about morals. This wasn't some ethical awakening, this was about money, pure economics. Cigarette companies didn't want bad press, they didn't want to be associated with children's content. ABC didn't want to lose family viewers by keeping the adult edge too sharp, so the show changed dramatically. After Winston left, new sponsors came in: Welch's grape juice, Post Pebbles cereal, literally named after the character, toys, vitamins, candy, kid stuff, family-friendly products. And the content changed to match, episode by episode, season by season. Pebbles and Bam Bomb became the stars, episodes focused on baby antics, cute moments, family outings, lighter jokes, softer humor. The marital tension? Gone. The gambling jokes? Gone. The nightclub scenes? Faded out. The workplace stress? Softened. By season 5, they introduced the Great Gazoo, a tiny green alien from the future. Only Fred and Barney could see him. Pure fantasy, pure kid appeal, nothing like the original show. The ratings were already dropping by this point. The Flintstones had peaked in its first 2 seasons. By 1965, it was losing ground to other primetime shows. ABC canceled the show in April 1966. 6 seasons, 166 episodes, done. But here's the twist. That wasn't the end, not even close. That was just the beginning of the real transformation. Most people don't know this. The Flintstones became a kids' show in reruns, not during its original run. After 1966, the show moved to daytime TV, Saturday mornings, afternoon blocks, and networks edited it heavily. Cigarette ads completely removed, scrubbed from existence, some jokes trimmed, some scenes cut entirely. The whole thing was repackaged as family-friendly. Kids who watched in the 1970s and 80s never saw Fred and Barney smoke. They didn't see the Winston ads. They didn't catch the adult jokes about money and marriage. They just saw a funny cartoon about cavemen, a wholesome family show, nothing controversial, nothing edgy. And that's the version you remember. That's the version that's stuck in your mind. Think about that for a second. The show you grew up with was edited, cleaned up, rewritten, sanitized for a new generation. You never saw the original, you saw the edited version, the safe version. But the change didn't stop there. In the 1980s, networks went even further, much further. They created spin-offs specifically for children, and that's when the Flintstones became a Saturday morning empire. 1986, ABC launched the Flintstone Kids, a brand new show. Fred, Barney, Wilma, and Betty. As children, as toddlers, let that sink in for a moment. Characters from an adult sitcom were now toddlers in a Saturday morning cartoon aimed at 6-year-olds. No workplace stress, no marital fights, no cigarettes, no gambling, no adult themes whatsoever. Just kids having adventures, learning lessons, making friends, selling cereal to children, and it worked. The show ran for 2 seasons. It was a hit with young audiences. By the late 80s, if you asked a kid about the Flintstones, they'd say, wholesome cartoon family, fun characters, silly adventures, nothing more. If you asked an adult who watched in 1960, they'd say blue-collar sitcom with cigarette ads, adult humor, real problems, workplace stress, same characters, same names, completely different show. So what happened? How did this transformation occur? The Flintstones didn't evolve naturally. It didn't gradually change over time. It was strategically rebranded, deliberately, carefully. TV standards changed, advertising rules changed, audiences changed, and the show changed with them. In the 1960s, cigarette ads were legal, normal, expected. By the 1970s, they were banned from TV entirely. In the 1960s, primetime cartoons were experimental, new, exciting. By the 1980s, cartoons were only for Saturday mornings. Animation was pushed out of primetime completely. The Flintstones survived by adapting, by changing, by erasing its own history. Most people have no idea it was ever an adult show. They don't know about the cigarette ads. They don't know about the adult themes. And that's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. That's marketing. That's strategy. Now here's the big question. Why does this matter today? Why should you care about a show from 60 years ago? The Flintstones has been around for over 60 years. Reruns, spin-offs, movies, merchandise, streaming services. But the version you know is sanitized, edited, repackaged for modern audiences. And here's the thing, this isn't unique to the Flintstones. This is how media works. This is how entertainment evolves. Shows and movies are constantly rewritten, edited, adapted to fit new markets, new rules, new cultural standards, new audiences. The Flintstones just did it first. It pioneered this transformation. If you watched in 1960, you saw Fred and Barney smoke. You heard jokes about money problems and marital stress. You watched a sitcom that happened to be animated. If you watched in 1985, you saw a wholesome cartoon. No cigarettes, no edge, no adult themes, just fun. Same show, same characters, different reality, different experience. Here's what I want you to remember. Here's the takeaway. The media you grew up with was shaped by forces you didn't see. Sponsors, regulations, time slots, marketing strategies, corporate decisions. The Flintstones wasn't corrupted, it wasn't ruined, it was adapted, it was changed to survive. And that shows how American culture changed, from a world where smoking on TV was normal, to a world where kids' shows were heavily regulated and separated from adult content. Understanding this helps you see how nostalgia works, how memory works. You remember the version you saw, the version that aired when you were young, but that might not be the whole story. It might not be the original story. So here's my question for you. I really want to know, when did you first see the Flintstones? A prime time in the 60s, reruns in the 70s, VHS tapes in the 80s, cable in the 90s, streaming today? Did you ever see the Winston cigarette ads, or were they already gone by the time you tuned in? Drop a comment below. I want to know your experience. I want to hear your story. If you want more deep dives into classic TV shows, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Don't miss the next video. I've got a whole series planned. Shows you loved, quietly rewritten, edited for different audiences, hidden histories you never knew about. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. See you in the next one.